My girlfriend cheated, then said, "You drove me to it. You were always working." I said, "You're right. I was working. Working on building a business that just got acquired for $2.3 million. She found out about the payout. The same week I found out about him. Timing is everything. She got nothing. All right, Reddit, strap in because this one's got layers. My now ex-girlfriend of 4 years blamed me for her cheating, said I was emotionally absent and married to my work. And you know what? She was half right. I was working. A lot. But what she didn't know was that I was building a business on the side that just got acquired for $2.3 million. She found out about the money the exact same week I found out about her side piece. The universe has a sense of humor, and apparently it's dark as heck. Let me take you back to the beginning so you can fully appreciate how this all played out. I'm Cole, 32 years old, and I work as a licensed plumber in Central Ohio. Not the sexiest job in the world, but it pays well and I'm good at it. Been doing it since I was 19 when my uncle brought me into his small plumbing company right out of high school. While all my buddies were racking up student loan debt studying business administration or whatever, I was learning how to sweat copper pipes and snake drains. By 22, I had my journeyman license. By 25, I was a master plumber, pulling in solid money with zero debt. People always underestimate plumbers. They think we're just guys who unclog toilets and charge too much for it. But the reality is, a good plumber is part engineer, part detective, part counselor. You're solving puzzles all day. Why is this pipe making noise? Where's this leak coming from? How do I reroute this drain without tearing out half the basement? It's problem solving with a wrench, and I've always had a brain that liked figuring things out. My Uncle Frank ran a modest operation. 3 trucks, 5 employees including me, mostly residential work with some light commercial stuff. Nothing fancy but steady. He was old school, kept everything on paper, scheduled jobs with a spiral notebook, and thought the internet was a fad that would eventually blow over. I loved the guy, but watching him leave money on the table because he refused to modernize drove me crazy. Uncle Frank's office was this cluttered mess of filing cabinets and sticky notes. He had a system that only made sense to him, and half the time even he couldn't figure it out. We'd lose track of jobs, double book technicians, forget to order parts for scheduled repairs. Customers would call asking where we were, and we'd realize their appointment had slipped through the cracks. It was chaos disguised as a functioning business. I'd come home after long days and just think about all the inefficiencies, all the wasted time driving back and forth to supply houses because nobody tracked inventory, all the missed appointments because the schedule lived in Frank's head and a beat-up notebook, all the invoices that went out weeks late because everything was handwritten and had to be manually entered into QuickBooks. That's when I started tinkering with an idea. See, the plumbing industry is ancient when it comes to technology. Most companies still operate like it's 1985. Scheduling is a nightmare. Dispatching is inefficient. Inventory management is basically drive to the supply house when you run out of fittings. Customer communication is phone tag for days. I knew there had to be a better way. So in my spare time, which admittedly wasn't much, I started learning to code. Nothing crazy, just enough to be dangerous. Took online courses at night, watched YouTube tutorials during lunch breaks, stumbled through Stack Overflow forums trying to figure out why my code kept breaking. It was humbling, starting over as a complete beginner in something new when I was already a master at my day job. Eventually, I started building a prototype for a software platform designed specifically for small trade businesses. Plumbers, electricians, HVAC guys, the people who actually keep society running but get ignored by Silicon Valley because they wear work boots instead of hoodies. I called it TradeFlow. Yeah, I know, not the most creative name, but it did exactly what it said. It helped trade businesses flow better. Scheduling, dispatching, invoicing, inventory tracking, customer management, the works. All in one platform built by someone who actually understood the industry because they lived it every single day. The first version was rough, like really rough. I'm talking interfaces that looked like they were designed by a drunk toddler and code held together with prayers and duct tape. But it worked, sort of, enough to test the concept. Started beta testing it with my uncle's company in 2019. Within 6 months, we'd increased efficiency by something like 40%. Jobs weren't falling through the cracks anymore. Customers were getting automated appointment reminders. Invoices went out same day instead of sitting in a pile for weeks. My uncle went from skeptical to borderline evangelical about the whole thing. Uncle Frank would grab anyone who'd listen and start talking about this software his nephew built. At supplier meetings, at the hardware store, at church. You gotta see this thing Cole made. Changed my whole business. The man who thought email was unnecessary was suddenly showing people his iPad with TradeFlow pulled up, like he was presenting at a tech conference. Word started spreading. Other plumbing companies in the area wanted in. Then an electrical contractor heard about it from my uncle at a trade show. Then an HVAC company. Before I knew it, I had about 30 businesses using the platform, and I was charging them a monthly subscription fee that started adding up real quick. But here's the thing. I was still working full-time as a plumber. Still crawling under houses at 7 in the morning, still dealing with backed up sewage lines and burst pipes in February. The software thing was nights and weekends. Early mornings. Every spare second I could find. I was running on maybe 5 hours of sleep most nights, surviving on coffee and determination. Enter Megan. Met her at a friend's cookout in summer 2020. She was friends with someone's sister or something. Pretty girl, worked as a dental hygienist at a practice across town. Had this energy about her that felt calming at first. Like she was the type to go with the flow, not make a big deal out of stuff. She had blonde hair that she always wore in this casual ponytail and this laugh that was warm without being annoying. We hit it off immediately. She thought it was attractive that I worked with my hands and had actual job security instead of some vague startup dream. Laughed when I told her about crawling through crawl spaces and the weird stuff you find under people's houses. Said she appreciated that I was real and not trying to be something I wasn't. Those first few months were that honeymoon phase everyone talks about. Everything felt easy. She'd text me good morning every day with some little joke or observation. We'd spend weekends doing nothing in particular, just enjoying each other's company. She met my family at a Labor Day barbecue and fit right in, helping my mom in the kitchen and chatting with my dad about whatever football game was on. Early dating Megan was great. She'd come over after work, we'd cook dinner together, watch whatever was on Netflix, normal couple stuff. She met my family and they loved her. My mom especially. Kept making comments about grandkids and how Megan seemed like the one. My dad would pull me aside and tell me not to mess it up, that good women don't come along every day. About 6 months in, she moved into my place. It made sense financially, and we were spending every night together anyway. Things felt solid. We talked about the future. Marriage eventually? Kids maybe? Buying a house with a bigger garage so I could have a proper workshop. The house was a small 3-bedroom I'd bought at a foreclosure auction a few years before I met her. Needed a lot of work when I got it, but I'd fixed it up myself over time. New plumbing, obviously. Rewired the electrical, refinished the hardwood floors. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Paid off with no mortgage because I'd lived like a monk for years, banking everything I didn't absolutely need. What Megan didn't fully understand was TradeFlow. I'd mentioned the software thing early on. Told her I was working on a side project that was starting to gain traction. But I didn't go into details because, honestly, who wants to hear about SaaS platforms and monthly recurring revenue on a date? She nodded along, said it sounded cool, and that was basically the extent of our conversations about it. What Megan saw was me coming home exhausted from plumbing jobs, then sitting at my computer until midnight most nights. What she didn't see was the subscriber count climbing, the feature requests pouring in, the emails from larger companies asking about enterprise pricing, the conversations I was starting to have with people who used words like scalable and market opportunity. I probably should have explained it better. Should have shown her the numbers, the growth charts, the emails from potential investors. But there was this part of me that wanted to keep it separate. The plumbing job was what paid the bills. The software was this fragile dream that I was afraid to jinx by talking about too much. And honestly, I wanted to surprise her eventually. Wanted that moment where I could show her what all the sacrifice was building toward. Looking back, that was stupid. Communication matters, but hindsight is perfect vision. And at the time, I thought I was protecting something delicate. By 2022, TradeFlow had about 200 paying customers, generating around 40 grand a month in recurring revenue. I'd hired 2 developers part-time to help me build out features faster. Had a small office space I was renting on the cheap in an industrial park. Still working full-time as a plumber, because I wasn't ready to bet everything on the software yet. The office was nothing special. Old carpet that probably had stories to tell, fluorescent lights that flickered when the AC kicked on, and furniture I'd bought at an office liquidation sale. But it was mine. Had a whiteboard on one wall covered in feature ideas and bug fixes, and a mini fridge stocked with energy drinks for the long nights. My developers were these 2 guys I'd met at a local tech meetup. Jason was a former accountant who taught himself to code because he hated his job. Ravi was fresh out of community college, hungry to prove himself. Neither of them had fancy pedigrees or FA-ing experience, but they worked hard and understood what we were building because they'd both grown up around trade businesses. Jason's dad was an electrician. Ravi's uncle ran a landscaping company. The three of us would meet twice a week to sprint on new features, sometimes working until 2 or 3 in the morning when we were close to a release. I'd show up to plumbing jobs the next day running on fumes, but it felt worth it. Every new subscriber, every positive review, every customer who emailed saying TradeFlow had changed their business, it validated all the sacrifice. But the late nights were getting later. The weekends were getting shorter. And Megan was getting frustrated. The complaints started small. Little comments about how I was always tired, how we never went anywhere anymore, how she felt like she was living with a roommate instead of a boyfriend. At first, I tried to accommodate, made sure to schedule date nights, even if I was exhausted, took her out to dinner on Saturdays, forced myself to be present even when my brain was running through code problems. But I could tell she sensed the distraction, could tell I wasn't fully there even when I was physically in the room. I tried to explain that this was temporary, that I was building something that could change our lives, that if I could just push through for another year or two, we'd be in a completely different position financially. She'd nod and say she understood, but I could tell she didn't really get it. To her, I was just some plumber who was obsessed with his computer. The arguments started getting more frequent. She'd make comments about other couples going on vacations while we stayed home, about her coworkers' boyfriends who actually took them places, about how she felt like she was at the bottom of my priority list behind work and that app thing. Looking back, maybe I should have communicated better. Maybe I should have brought her into the vision more, shown her the numbers, made her feel like a partner in what I was building. But honestly, part of me wanted to surprise her, wanted to show up one day with a check and watch her jaw drop. Stupid romantic notion that bit me in the rear end. By early 2023, things with Megan were getting tense. The complaints weren't little anymore. Full arguments about how I was never present, how she felt neglected, how all I cared about was work. She started going out with her friends more, which was fine. Healthy even. Everyone needs their own social life. There was this shift in her energy that I noticed but didn't want to acknowledge. She stopped asking about my day, stopped being interested in what I was working on. Our conversations became functional rather than connected. What's for dinner? Did you pay the electric bill? I'm going out with friends tonight. The friends being mentioned became more vague. Not going out with Ashley and Kim, but meeting up with some people. Not happy hour at that place on Main Street, but just grabbing dinner somewhere. The details got fuzzy, and I told myself it was because she was mad at me and being cold, not because she was hiding anything. Meanwhile, TradeFlow was exploding. Hit 400 subscribers. Revenue crossed $100,000 a month. I'd quit my plumbing job by then, finally going full-time on the software. Hired more developers. Got an actual office with actual furniture. Things were moving fast. Quitting plumbing was bittersweet. I'd been doing it for 13 years, and there was a comfort in the physical work, the tangible results. You fix a pipe, water flows. You unclog a drain, problem solved. Software was different, abstract, but the numbers made the decision for me. TradeFlow was generating more monthly revenue than I'd make in a year of plumbing. Time to commit. Megan barely acknowledged the transition. When I told her I'd quit to focus on the software full-time, she just said, "That's nice," and went back to scrolling her phone. Didn't ask what it meant for our finances. Didn't express excitement or concern. Just checked out. Then, in March 2023, I got an email that changed everything. A company called Field Pro Solutions wanted to talk. They were a major player in the field service management space, one of the big dogs in the industry. Said they'd been watching TradeFlow's growth and were interested in exploring strategic opportunities. Translation: they wanted to buy us. I almost fell out of my chair. Sat in my office staring at that email for probably 10 minutes, reading it over and over to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Called my buddy Nate, who'd been advising me on business stuff, and he nearly lost his mind. Nate was this finance guy I'd met at a small business meetup a couple years back. He'd helped me set up proper accounting, structure the company correctly, all the boring but important stuff. When I read him the email over the phone, there was dead silence for about 5 seconds. Then he just started laughing. Dude, do you understand what this means? This is the exit. This is what every founder dreams about. They're not just kicking tires, they're serious. Field Pro doesn't reach out unless they've already done their homework. He told me to play it cool, not seem too eager, and for the love of God, hire a lawyer. A real one. Not the guy who helped me form the LLC. The next few months were a blur. Due diligence, negotiations, more due diligence. Conference calls at weird hours, because Field Pro's headquarters was on the West Coast. Documents with so many pages, they could have been novels. All while trying to keep the business running and not let anyone know a deal was in the works. The due diligence process was invasive. They wanted to see everything: financial statements, customer contracts, code repositories, employee agreements. They interviewed my developers, analyzed our churn rates, our customer acquisition costs, our growth projections. It felt like being examined under a microscope while trying to act normal. FieldPro's initial offer was $1.8 million. My lawyer said we could do better. We countered at $2.5 million. They came back at $2.1 million. More back and forth. Their team would go silent for days, and I'd convince myself the deal was dead. Then they'd come back with another counteroffer, and the roller coaster would continue. Finally settled on $2.3 million with some earnout provisions tied to retention goals, meaning I'd get about $1.9 million at close, and the rest would come over the next 18 months if the customer base stayed intact. $2.3 million. For a side project I'd started because I was annoyed with spiral notebooks. The deal was set to close in late October 2023. I had to keep it quiet until the ink was dry, but I was already planning how to tell Megan. Already imagining the look on her face when I explained that all those late nights, all that time she thought I was ignoring her, had actually been building something that would set us up for life. That's when the universe decided to get cute. It was mid-October. Deal was about 2 weeks from closing. I was at the office late, hammering out some final details with my lawyer over email. Megan thought I was at a site visit for a potential client. Just another lie she probably rolled her eyes at. My phone buzzed. Text from my buddy Nate. No words, just a photo. I opened it and felt my stomach drop through the floor. It was Megan, at some bar downtown, wrapped around some dude like a pretzel. Not just friendly either. Full-on making out, his hands in places that made my vision go red. The lighting was dim, but there was no mistaking her. That ponytail. The jacket I'd bought her for her birthday. Her. I called Nate immediately. Where did you get this? My cousin was there for a birthday thing. Recognized Megan from when she came to that cookout last summer. Asked me if you two had broken up or something. I didn't know what to say, so I just asked her to send me the picture. I just sat there, staring at the photo. 4 years. 4 years of building a life with someone. And she's in some bar downtown with her tongue down another guy's throat, while I'm working on securing our future. You want me to come over? Nate asked. No, I need to think. And I did think. Sat in my office for about an hour just processing. The initial rage faded into something colder, more calculated. That's always been my way. I don't explode. I strategize. Comes from years of problem solving. You can't fix a complex plumbing issue by getting emotional. You assess, you plan, you execute. First thing I did was forward the photo to my personal email. Then I pulled up our lease agreement, our joint bank account statements, the title to the truck, anything that documented what was mine versus what was ours. Spoiler alert, almost everything was mine. The house was in my name, bought before we met. The truck was in my name. The only joint account we had was a shared checking for household expenses that had maybe $3,000 in it at any given time. She had no idea about TradeFlow's financials, no idea about the acquisition, no idea that in 2 weeks I was about to become a millionaire. All she saw was a plumber who stared at his laptop too much. Perfect. I did some digging over the next few days. The guy in the photo was someone named Brad. Worked at some car dealership downtown. Classic sales bro type. Fake tan, too much product in his hair. Probably had opinions about protein shakes and called everyone my guy. Megan had apparently met him at her gym about 3 months earlier. 3 months. She'd been carrying on with this clown for 3 months while I was closing the biggest deal of my life. I didn't confront her right away. Had to wait for the deal to close. Had to make sure everything was buttoned up legally. My lawyer confirmed that since we weren't married and everything was in my name, she had zero claim to anything. The acquisition money would hit my account and she'd have no way to touch it. Those 2 weeks were surreal. I went home every night, acted normal, watched her lie to my face about where she'd been and what she'd been doing. She'd come back from dinner with coworkers, smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. She'd be on her phone constantly, tilting the screen away when I walked by. Classic cheater behavior that I'd been too busy to notice before. It took everything in me not to say something. Not to throw the photo in her face and watch her scramble, but I'm a patient man. Always have been. You don't build something from nothing by being impulsive. October 28th, 2023. Deal closed. $2.3 million wired to my account minus fees and the amounts held for earnout. Net to me on day one was just over $1.9 million. The rest would come over the next 18 months if retention goals were met. I stared at my bank balance for a solid 10 minutes. Then I called my lawyer and had him start drawing up paperwork to transfer the house into a trust, just in case. That night, I came home and Megan was in the kitchen making dinner, acting all domestic. Probably felt guilty about whatever she'd been doing with Brad earlier that week. She'd made this pasta dish that she only made when she was trying to butter me up for something. "Hey babe," she said without looking up. "How was work?" "Interesting day, actually." "We should talk." She froze. The "we should talk" phrase hits different when you're hiding something. I saw her shoulders tense up, saw her grip tighten on the wooden spoon she was holding. "Everything okay?" Her voice was higher than normal. Nervous. "I don't know. Is it?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the photo. Didn't say anything. Just held it up so she could see herself wrapped around Brad like a vine on a telephone pole. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might pass out. She just stared at the screen, mouth opening and closing like a fish trying to breathe air. The wooden spoon clattered to the counter. "Cole, I can... That's not... Don't." I put the phone away. I'm not interested in explanations or apologies or whatever speech you've been rehearsing in your head. I just need to know how long. Silence. Then a whisper. 3 months. I nodded. "Cool. You have until Sunday to get your stuff out. I'll be staying at a hotel." "Wait, what?" "Cole, can we please just talk about this? I know what you saw looks bad, but you have to understand. I've been so lonely. You're never here. You're always working. I felt like I didn't even have a boyfriend anymore. Here it comes. The blame shift. The "you made me do this" play. Classic cheater deflection, straight out of the playbook. "So your solution to feeling lonely was to start seeing a car salesman behind my back?" "It wasn't like that. It just happened. We were just friends at first, and then you made out with him at a bar downtown while I was at the office trying to secure our future. Yeah, things just happen. You drove me to this." Now she was getting heated. Tears starting to flow, but angry tears, not sad ones. "You were never present. You were always working on that stupid computer project. I needed attention, I needed affection, and you weren't giving it to me. What was I supposed to do? Literally anything except cheat. Break up with me. Have an honest conversation. Throw a lamp at my head. But no, you chose to sneak around with some dude named Brad while I was busy being emotionally absent. You don't get it. You're so obsessed with work that you don't even see what you've done to us. I tried to tell you. I tried so many times to get you to pay attention to me, to prioritize us, and you just kept choosing that app over our relationship. What I've done to us. That's rich." She was full on crying now. But I felt nothing. That surprised me a little. 4 years and I just felt cold, empty, like I was watching a scene from a movie instead of living through the end of my relationship. "I loved you," she said. "I still love you. Brad was a mistake. A stupid mistake because I was desperate for someone to actually pay attention to me. You loved the version of me that was convenient for you. The stable plumber with a steady paycheck who was too busy to notice you were checked out. Well, here's the thing, Megan. That stupid computer project you kept dismissing? That thing I was always working on instead of giving you attention?" She looked up, confused. Mascara running down her face, making her look like a sad raccoon. "It just got acquired for $2.3 million. Closed today, actually. Pretty good timing." The silence that followed was almost musical. I watched her face cycle through about 8 different emotions in about 5 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, realization, horror, regret, more horror, then something that looked a lot like calculation. What? What do you mean acquired?" "I mean a big company bought my software platform. Wrote me a very large check." "Well, wire transfer technically, transfer. The point is, all those late nights you were so angry about, I was building something valuable, and now I'm set for a very long time." She just stared at me. I could literally see her brain recalculating, could see her running the numbers in her head, trying to figure out what this meant for her. "Cole, I didn't know. You never told me. If I'd known, if you'd known what? That there was money involved? Would that have changed whether you snuck around with Brad?" "I didn't. We only kissed a few times. It wasn't serious." "Megan, it doesn't matter. You still chose him over being honest with me. You still snuck around for 3 months. You still blamed me for driving you to it, instead of taking any responsibility. The money doesn't change what you did. It just makes the timing hilarious." She started pacing, hands running through her hair, pulling at her ponytail like she could yank a solution out of her scalp. Okay. Let's slow down. This is a lot to process. We've been together 4 years. We can't just throw that away over one mistake. We can work through this. Start fresh." "No, Cole, please. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. We can get past this. I'll do whatever it takes. We can go to counseling. We can set boundaries. We can. I said no. You're seriously going to walk away from 4 years because of a few kisses? I laughed. Actually laughed. A few kisses. Right. And no. I'm walking away because you cheated, lied about it, blamed me for it, and only seem interested in working things out now that you found out there's money involved. The 4 years thing is just making me feel like I wasted my early 30s. I didn't know about the money when I said we should work things out. You literally found out about the money 30 seconds before you suggested working things out. She had no response for that. Just stood there, tears still streaming, looking at me like I was a stranger. I grabbed my jacket and keys. Sunday, have your stuff out. I'll have someone change the locks Monday morning. Where am I supposed to go? I'm sure Brad has a couch. Or maybe he'll let you stay at his place since you two are so connected. Cole, this isn't fair. I have nowhere to go. My name's on the lease. Actually, it's not. I never added you. My lawyer confirmed that earlier today. You're welcome to check the paperwork. I opened the front door. Have a good night, Megan. Walked out and didn't look back. Spent the next few days at a hotel, fielding texts and calls from Megan that ranged from apologetic to angry to pathetic. The messages came in waves. First wave was apologetic. I'm so sorry, Cole. I made a horrible mistake. Please let me explain. I love you. Second wave was angry. You can't just throw away 4 years like this. You're being unreasonable. I was lonely, and you weren't there for me. This is your fault, too. Third wave was bargaining. What if we just take a break? Think about things for a while? I know we can fix this if you just give me a chance. Fourth wave was pathetic. I have nowhere to go. My parents are going to be so disappointed. Please, Cole, please just talk to me. I didn't respond to any of them. Just forwarded the relevant ones to my lawyer in case she tried anything stupid. Sunday came and I sent Nate over to supervise while she moved out. Didn't want to be there for the theatrics. He said she cried the whole time. Kept asking him to convince me to talk to her. Kept saying this wasn't fair and she deserved another chance. Nate told her he wasn't getting involved and that maybe she should have thought about consequences before making her choices. Said she threw a few things around, broke a lamp, but eventually got all her stuff loaded into her car and left. Good man, that Nate. Monday morning, locksmith came and changed all the locks. Megan texted asking if she'd left her hairdryer. I told her to buy a new one and blocked her number. Here's where it gets interesting. 2 weeks after the breakup, the local newspaper ran a story about the TradeFlow acquisition. Local plumber build software company sells for $2.3 million, was the headline. They interviewed me at the office, took pictures, asked about my journey from crawling under houses to closing 7-figure deals. I hate having my photo taken, but figured it was good press for the platform. Megan saw the article. Of course she did. Within 3 days, I started getting messages from people I barely knew. Old high school acquaintances, distant cousins, random Facebook friends. All of them asking variations of the same question. Did you really screw over your girlfriend after getting rich? Turns out Megan had launched a full PR campaign, telling everyone who would listen that I'd cut her out of the money after she supported me through the hard years. Posting on her social media about how she'd sacrificed everything for a man who abandoned her the moment he got successful. Making herself the victim while conveniently leaving out the part where she was making out with Brad at bars downtown. My buddy Nate sent me screenshots. She'd written this long post about how I'd hidden the business from her, how she'd been blindsided by the sale, how she deserved compensation for her emotional labor during the building phase. The comments were full of people calling me every name in the book. I called my lawyer. Within a week, Megan received a cease and desist letter at her parents' house explaining that we were never married. She had no ownership stake in the business, no contract, no legal claim of any kind, and that continued defamation would result in a lawsuit. The letter also included a copy of the photo from the bar, just to remind her what actually ended our relationship. She stopped posting after that, but the universe wasn't done with her yet. About 3 weeks after she moved out, I was at the grocery store and ran into her friend Ashley. She looked uncomfortable seeing me, but I just nodded and kept walking. Then she called out my name. Cole. Wait. I turned around. I just wanted to say, I didn't know. About Brad. She told us you two were having problems, but I didn't know she was actually cheating. I'm sorry. I just shrugged. Not your fault. She's telling everyone a different story. That you were the one who checked out. That you drove her away. Yeah, I've heard. Ashley looked around like she was about to commit a crime. Brad dumped her last week, called her and said he wasn't ready for a relationship. She's been staying with her parents crying every day. I didn't say anything. She keeps saying she made the biggest mistake of her life, that she should have just talked to you about feeling neglected instead of, Ashley trailed off, instead of what she did. Yeah, I grabbed my cart. Tell her I said good luck with everything. Walked away and finished my shopping. 2 months later, I got a Facebook message from Megan. Long, rambling, full of apologies and promises to change. Said she'd been reading self-help books. Said she realized what she'd lost. Said she wanted to meet for coffee and talk. I screenshotted it, sent it to Nate, and archived the conversation without responding. Her Instagram these days is all inspirational quotes about knowing your worth and surviving toxic relationships. She started a TikTok where she talks about healing from emotional unavailability without ever mentioning that she was the one who cheated. Got like 40 followers, mostly bots. Meanwhile, Brad got fired from the dealership about a month after dumping Megan. Apparently, he'd been telling customers he was dating someone who was about to be rich, and when the managers found out it was all nonsense, they let him go for unprofessional conduct. Last I heard, he moved back to Indiana to live with his mom. You can't make this stuff up. 6 months later, here's where everyone ended up. First thing I did was set up a meeting with my accountant and financial advisor. Not the guy who did my taxes from H&R Block, but an actual wealth management team that Nate recommended. They put together a portfolio, set up a trust, and helped me understand how to make the money work instead of just sitting in a checking account earning nothing. Bought a couple rental properties in decent neighborhoods. Nothing fancy, just solid investments that would generate passive income. I bought my Uncle Frank's mortgage out from under him, showed up at his house one Saturday morning with a cashier's check for the remaining balance, told him it was a thank you for taking a chance on a 19-year-old kid who just wanted to learn a trade. He tried to refuse. Said he didn't take handouts. I told him it wasn't a handout. It was debt repayment. He'd given me the foundation that everything else was built on. He cried a little, which was weird because the man doesn't even cry during Ohio State losses. His wife made me stay for breakfast and kept hugging me every 5 minutes. Took my parents to Florida for 2 weeks. Put them up in a beachfront hotel, bought them dinner every night, wouldn't let them look at a single check. My mom kept asking if I was sure, if I could really afford it. I just laughed and ordered another round of appetizers. Watched them walk on the beach, holding hands at sunset, and realized that's what I wanted eventually. Something real, something lasting. Helped my developers Jason and Ravi negotiate retention bonuses with FieldPro, so they wouldn't get screwed in the transition. Both of them got bumped to full-time with benefits and stock options. They're still running the platform, just with bigger paychecks and actual job security now. We still grab lunch once a month and talk about the early days when we were building TradeFlow in that dump of an office. Set up a meeting with the local trade school and offered to fund a scholarship for kids who wanted to go into plumbing, electrical, or HVAC. Full tuition plus tool money for 2 students a year. Named it after my uncle. He about had a heart attack when I told him. First recipients started this fall. 2 kids from rough backgrounds who reminded me of myself at 18. Started dating a woman named Natalie about 4 months ago. She's an occupational therapist. Met her at a charity thing Nate dragged me to. On our 3rd date, I told her the whole story. The business, the sale, Megan, all of it. She listened, asked questions, didn't once calculate what she could get out of it. She's got her own career, her own money, her own life. She's with me because she likes who I am, not what I have. Last month, I took Natalie to meet my parents. My mom pulled me aside afterward and said, "This one's different." My dad just nodded and gave me a thumbs up when Natalie wasn't looking. Next month, she's meeting Uncle Frank. Already warned her he's going to show her baby pictures and embarrassing stories from when I was an apprentice. As for Megan, she reached out through a mutual friend last week. Said she wanted to clear the air and get closure. I told the friend to tell her I'd already gotten my closure. The friend said Megan didn't take it well, started crying about how unfair it was that I was happy, and she wasn't. Not my problem anymore. Still drive the same truck. Still live in the same house. Still wear the same work boots when I'm doing projects around the garage. The money's nice, but it didn't change who I am. Just gave me options. Ran into Brad at a gas station about a month ago. He was driving a beat-up Civic with Indiana plates, filling up on his way back from wherever. He saw me, recognized me, and looked like he wanted to say something. I just nodded, finished pumping my gas, and drove off. No point in a conversation. We both knew how the story ended. Some people are worth your time, some people aren't. Megan bet against me. Brad bet on a shortcut. They both lost. I'm doing great. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.